Picture this. It's exactly 9 a.m. You sit down at your desk, the coffee is fresh, your energy is high, and you are finally ready to tackle that massive, complex analysis you've been putting off all week. You crack your knuckles, hover your hands over the keyboard, take a deep breath, and you are ready to dive in.
And then, ding, an email pops up. Before you can even read the subject line, buzz, a direct message from your manager. Then, out of nowhere, the desk phone starts ringing. As you reach over to silence it, a colleague taps you on the shoulder for a quick question about a totally unrelated project. You turn back to your screen, desperately trying to find your place, and ding, another notification. It is just a relentless, frantic barrage of dings, buzzes, and shoulder taps. It's the plague of the modern workplace, right?
And just like that, you look at the clock and it's 11 a.m. 2 whole hours just vanished. That complex analysis barely started. Maybe you wrote a single sentence. But here's the crazy part. If someone asked you, you'd honestly say you've been working the entire time. You feel totally exhausted. So we really have to ask, where did those 2 hours go? How did so much effort lead to literally zero progress on your most important task? Well, to take back control and actually protect your focus, let's break down 5 highly practical actions from our explainer today that you can use right now.
Action number 1, create uninterrupted work blocks.
You see, the biggest trap at 9 a.m. was being completely reactive, just letting the day happen to you. If you want to do demanding work, you have to actively take the wheel. You need to explicitly block time off on your calendar. Trying to juggle 3 things at once, or squeezing deep thought between random emails, it absolutely wrecks your concentration. You're forcing your brain to burn massive amounts of energy just starting and restarting. Instead, look at your day and intentionally carve out a protected chunk of time for just one demanding task. You're basically building a fortress around your time.
Moving on to action number 2, remove distractions.
Because let's be real, blocking off your calendar doesn't mean a thing if your environment is actively fighting you. You've got to neutralize those digital triggers. Turn off those desktop email alerts that sneak in and hijack your brain. Silence the unnecessary notifications. Close any apps that have absolutely nothing to do with the task at hand. You can't let email or social media yank you out of your flow every time there's an update. We have to break the habit of constantly checking messages. Try limiting yourself to checking them in batches, just a few times a day, instead of letting them dictate your every minute. Which brings us to a surprisingly simple, practically old-school trick from the source material, the 2-meter rule. Look, human willpower is flawed. If your phone is sitting right next to your keyboard, the temptation to do a quick check is just huge. So, the 2-meter rule says to physically move your phone 2 meters out of reach. That's it. Just putting that physical distance between you and the distraction is usually enough to break that impulsive habit when your work gets a little tough.
All right, action 3, communicate your focus time.
Now, I know a lot of us feel kind of anxious about doing this because it feels, well, rude. But simply telling people, I'll be busy for this period and would prefer not to be interrupted, is a total game changer. Most colleagues will completely understand and respect your boundaries if you just let them know up front. So whether that's giving a heads up to your desk neighbor, putting up a friendly do not disturb sign, or just changing your status on your messaging app, that clear communication stops the random shoulder taps before they even happen. You're actually inviting your team to help you protect your focus. That brings us to action 4, timebox the task. So what is timeboxing? It's this powerful structural tool where you decide in advance exactly how much time you're going to spend on something. It's not just about when you work, but setting firm boundaries around the work itself. And this is so crucial, especially if you're a bit of a perfectionist. Because without a limit, a task will just expand to fill whatever time you have available. You could easily spend 10 hours tweaking a report when 5 hours would have been perfectly fine. Setting a firm limit forces you to focus on the absolute most important parts and stops you from over-engineering things. So, for example, try saying this. I will work on this analysis from 9 to 11. Notice that's not a vague, I'll try to get to it today. No, it's a hard start and a hard stop. It's a contract with yourself. When you say, I have these 2 hours and then I have to be done or at least pause, it completely shifts your mindset. You know the clock is ticking, which naturally heightens your focus and shoves distractions right out the door. And finally, action 5, finish before switching. We mentioned earlier how starting and stopping is a massive energy drain, right? So once you're in that focus block, you need to stay there. Dig in, push through to the end. Don't just set it aside to finish later if you're almost done. But what if the task is just way too massive for a single 2-hour block? Easy. Break that giant task down into smaller, bite-sized pieces. The golden rule here is that each of these subtasks has to be something you can fully complete in a single uninterrupted session. You really want that satisfying feeling of crossing the finish line on that piece before you switch gears.
Because doing this creates a brilliant chain reaction. It all starts by pushing away those distractions. That step allows you to successfully block your time. The protected time creates this sort of focus bubble around you. And once you're focused, you generate momentum. Momentum is the magic ingredient that finally carries you across the finish line. If you break that chain right at the start by letting a distraction slip in, you lose the momentum and the finish line just keeps getting further and further away.
Reclaiming your workday. Let's pull this all together and see how it works in practice.
Let's replay that exact same morning from the beginning of our explainer. On the one hand, we had the chaos, right? The dings, the buzzes, the shoulder taps, resulting in absolute zero progress by 11 a.m. Now let's contrast that with our new approach. Before 9 a.m., our employees scheduled a strict 2-hour block. They completely closed their email and silenced their desktop notifications. They used the 2-meter rule and physically moved their phone across the room. Then they sent a quick message to the team saying, hey, going offline for deep work until 11. By setting up these boundaries, they built an impenetrable focus block. And at 11 a.m., they actually finished the analysis.
Taking back control doesn't happen by accident. It takes real intention. You have to realize that your time and your attention are literally your most valuable professional assets. If you don't actively protect them, the distractions of the modern workplace will gladly eat up every single minute. So as you sit down at your desk tomorrow morning, I want you to ask yourself honestly, how much of your workday is actually yours?